Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal, Dahiya, and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about the big tech companies and their monopoly. Now, the Competition Commission of India has imposed a provisional penalty of approximately 1,337 crore rupees on Google for abusing its dominant position in multiple markets in the Android mobile device ecosystem. The regulator also issued cease and desist directions to the tech giant on a number of its business practices. Big tech companies have faced similar actions in various other countries as well. During the course of inquiry, Google argued about the competitive constraints being faced from Apple. However, the Commission ruled the differences in the two business models which affect the underlying incentives and intricacies of business decisions as well. According to CCI, Google manages the Android operating system as well as other licenses, which gives it an advantage over its competitors to pre-install most prominent search entry points such as search apps, widget and Chrome browser on Android devices. Meanwhile, responding to Sansad TV's invitation for this discussion, a Google spokesperson has said that they will review CCI's decision to evaluate next steps and termed this ruling as a major setback for Indian consumers and businesses vis-a-vis Android's security features and costs as well. So in today's show, we'll discuss and analyze all aspects of this issue, as in the antitrust ruling which has been given by the Competition Commission of India against Google, its impact and how this entire thing works. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you. Beginning with, we have with us Mr. Dhanendra Kumar. He is the former chairman of the Competition Commission of India. Mr. Kumar, welcome to Sansad Television. Jiten Jain is also with us, cybersecurity expert, and Manu, Seth, telecom expert, somebody who's been with the industry for quite some time, is also joining us. Welcome, both of you gentlemen as well. I'll begin with you, Mr. Kumar. Let's start by understanding this ruling a bit more in detail in terms of, why and how it happened. As we understand, this is a case which was filed in 2019 because of some complaints from the consumers who were using, Android-based mobile phones as well. And from there onwards, there have been a lot of arguments and counter-arguments also.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm speaking from London, so I hope my visibility and voice are fine.
Perfectly well.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Just very briefly to explain, this order issued by the Competition Commission of India imposed a penalty of, as you very rightly said, 1,337.76 crores on Google for allegedly abusing its dominant position in multiple markets. There are 5 markets which have been identified in the Android mobile device ecosystem, apart from cease and desist order, and that's the usual pattern which CCI does under Section 27B of the Act. Now, let me first of all preface by saying that the detailed order of the CCI is yet to be released, but we have seen the release issued by them and also generally know what exactly has happened. So let me first of all very briefly explain that smart mobile devices need an operating system, as it is called, to run applications, apps, which they are called apps and programs. And Android is a very prominent such mobile operating system which they had acquired, the Google had acquired in 2005. And in this instant case, the Commission examined various practices of Google, licensing of Android mobile operating system, various proprietary mobile application systems, Play Stores of Google and Google Chrome and so on. And also the YouTube, which is a very prominent system, which is again something which they had acquired, and it has proved very well for them. And the network effect and the technology and so on has given them a tremendous advantage, and they are used by most of the users, also app developers and people who wish to install the apps there. And also in India, somehow they are considered to be the go-to kind of a system. Now, there are 5 markets which have been identified by CCI. And very briefly, I won't like to take much of your time. Market for the general web search services in India, market for App Store for Android Smart Mobile OS in India, market for licensable OS means operating system for smart mobile systems in India, and market for non-OS specific mobile app web browsers in India, and market for online video hosting platforms, the YouTube in India.
Okay.
And the CCI in this case, and as you rightly pointed out, 2019, the case came up after a detailed examination and investigation by the DG. They found that they are dominant in all the 5 markets, and Google's their defense was that they are facing competitive concerns, intense competition from Apple.
Okay.
CCI seems to have come to the conclusion, no, the two are different, and now they have imposed this fine. Just one more comment here. Generally, CCI has imposed fines of nearly 18,000 crores rupees on various delinquent companies, but the recovery has not been very high so far. It's
okay, we'll come to that part as well. That's a very important aspect which Mr. Kumar has concluded his initial comment with. But coming to you, Mr. Seth, what we know and the way Mr. Kumar explained the entire case and the judgment as well, in layman's term, if you have to understand from a consumer's perspective, the entire issue is all about what kind of pre-installed apps are available on the mobile phone, on an Android phone when we buy it. And since Google owns the Android OS, it is their prerogative. Is that what the entire issue is all about?
See, that is an issue, but at the same point of time, we can't ignore the kind of convenience that is being passed on to the consumer over the period of time. So if we go back, say a decade, or I would say to be precise 7-8 years back, the journey and this whole cycle of this telecom industry has seen a lot of turnaround. The convenience, the consumer expectations, they have drastically changed. There was a time where the companies, whether the OEMs or the, I would say the platform providers, were talking about the count of apps. I remember in 2007, 8, 9, we used to advertise and say 50,000 applications, 10,000 applications. Now the consumer perspective has changed. So we need to understand in what perspective we are talking about. We can't ignore the facilities and the services that has been given by this platform, where the whole journey cycle has changed. The whole market has capitalized. Now the kind of the environment and the kind of ecosystem that has created over the period of time, whether it was talking about e-commerce, it was talking about online services, it was talking about the convenience at the click of a button. So a lot of things have changed. Now, when we are talking about a dominance, we really need to literally pick up the specific segment and then put a restriction on it, or try to modify that clause. Otherwise, the consumer perspective completely goes for a toss. The whole industry goes for a toss, because you have to actually understand what make it evolved over a period of time. Today, a lot of industries are running on Google Maps. A lot of things are running on those applications. A lot of platforms are running onto it. So we need to understand, earlier the race was for the acquisition. The race was for having more numbers. Now when we have numbers, we have to talk about services. So I will let the other panelists also to talk about, and then we can circle back on this point. But it's very, very important to understand in what perspective we want to limit the scope of operations.
Okay, Jiten, do you agree that this now, as Mr. Seth is pointing out, has it become a consumer perspective versus the business strategy out there, or rather having a level playing field for every player?
No, I think I fully agree with Manu bhai that look, somewhere down the line, of course, there is no doubt that these players like Apple and Google have been exploiting their position and trying to create a sort of a duopoly, where they're trying to impose their products upon the customers by using their dominance in the operating system and the phone manufacturing space. But yes, we also have to look at the life cycle evolution of these products. What was acceptable yesterday probably may not be acceptable today. what was a free trade yesterday may be a restrictive practices today. So if you look, this is not for the first time it is happening. If you look at what happened in Europe, where I think almost a decade ago, Microsoft was fined because they were bundling Internet Explorer and MS Office in their operating system, and everybody for I think multiple decades were fine with it till the time they realized that some other company called Libra and Free Office, Open Office have also built a similar product, and they also wanted a space. But because by then Microsoft has developed almost a monopoly in that market, it was very difficult for them to compete. So they filed a complaint saying that look, though Windows belong to Microsoft as a company, the operating system cannot be partial towards a particular company product. So give us an open space. Let people decide whether they want to install Open Office or Microsoft Office.
So shouldn't this yardstick, Jiten, shouldn't this yardstick apply here as well? Because unless the other products, lesser known products are given the level playing field, how will we as consumers know the difference?
So of course, that is where I begin. I think for the first initial, decades, let industry evolve. While it evolves, then put restrictions and make the field level playing for everyone. For example, today when Google started offering YouTube as a free video streaming service, everybody jumped because everything else was paid. This was free. But now the product has matured. People are seeing live streams on YouTube. People are making personal channels. And there are other companies like Vimeo also offering the same service. So then put restrictions that Google cannot force a mobile manufacturer to pre-install YouTube on the mobile phone. For example, search engine. We didn't even knew 20 years ago what a search engine was all about. I mean, today the whole industry has evolved. Search engine is all about email, flight searches and everything, maps and everything. But there was no other product available. But today Microsoft Maps are available, OB Maps are available. So today we are in a position to put restrictions that fine, okay, only, no company can pre-install a operating system. I think 30 years ago in India, Maruti was dominating the market. Today, I think we have much more competitive market. We have much more restrictions, right? Similarly, IT industry is evolving, and I think it is very, very good that Competition Commission has stepped in at the right time. And I think Google also should welcome this judgment, because somewhere down the line it was supposed to happen. It would have been better if they would have done away with these monopolistic practices themselves.
Okay.
But anyways, since the regulator is now stepping in, this is for other companies also to follow that, when the time comes, make space for everyone.
Okay. But Mr. Seth, Google is in its statement to us, is pointing out, and that I believe is Google's statement to all the media outlets as well, security and cost issues because of this decision. So what do we infer from that? In terms of security, are they implying that, there might be security issues with other products and the cost might go up?
No, so Vishal, I look at it like this. See, one point is that what was happening before and the perspective what we are changing now has to be relooked with a different business angle, because there is like a back and forth of the statements coming from the commission and coming from the Google. But we have to largely understand, because if we take a step back, a lot of OEM manufacturers, they tried creating their platforms, but they were not able to sustain the market. They were not able to service the consumers. Lot of OEMs actually ride on the platform which was given by Google. So, but it needs to be understand that what was happening before in acquisition of the customer was different, and now when we are talking about services to the customer, the perspective is changing. The philosophy of the business has to change. The paradigm of the business has to change. Now, coming to the security, to the point what you mentioned, see, if we go back a couple of years, or even it's all within a decade, the internet penetration or the computer and the digital penetration was in a very smaller digits, smaller percentages. Now we are talking about 74%, 84%. Tele density, we are talking about 94%, 96%. So which means that everyone is on a mobile platform. Everyone is well connected. That is where the commission will play a most important role, that how do we lay down the guidelines, how do we lay down those structures, because data security, data sharing, D&D, earlier there used to be a services called opt-in and opt-out. Now there is no perspective to it. So it really needs to be understood right. The new framework has to be laid down for the businesses now.
Okay. Let me take them to Mr. Kumar. I'll come to you, Jiten. But since Mr. Seth is pointing out a very important, relevant point here, and Mr. Kumar, as both the other panelists are saying, that we will have to look at the change dynamics and ever-changing dynamics as well. This is an industry wherein a lot of changes can come, within a short span of time. And consumer perspective, has to be kept in mind. Of course, there has to be a level playing field. That is the mandate of the regulator, CCI as well. But it will have to be done from the consumer's perspective also.
I completely agree with you on that, and also my co-panelists, what they have said. And by the way, I used to be in Ministry of Telecom earlier. I was Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Telecom from 98 to 2002, when the entire telecom sector was opened and mobile telephony came in a big way, and smart telephones were introduced and so on. And as very rightly pointed out by my colleagues, the teledensity, the number of telephones, the technology and so on, they undergone a quantum leap. We are here today because of the technology, and because the technology has enabled the users to get a new experience. And now people are using the various services out of choice. Nobody has forced them. The number of telephones in India and the various uses which have emerged, they are India is comparable to the best in the world. Yet the fact remains that what CCI has said, what they want is that it is for the dominant player. Dominance has not been acquired by any regulations or law. It's been acquired by the technology which they have evolved, and by the network effect of various uses and so on, and the number of users have gone up. Now, for the dominant players, and it's not only in this space, but for any dominant player, according to the competition law, there is a very strong obligation on the dominant player not to abuse its dominance, and abuse could be either exploitative or it could be exclusionary. And there, what they have concluded here, that the app developers and the consumers and the various other people, they are not able to have a free play in the market and the competition because of the various constraints put in by the dominance, and people have to go to them per force.
Okay.
Now, we are in a situation that we have to find a solution to this. And as has been very rightly pointed out by my co-panelist, one is to look at it in a totally integrated and holistic way, how it would be done. But India is not the only country where these things are happening. Google has been fined, for example, about $4 billion in EU, and they are facing numerous cases in USA and elsewhere. Now, maybe they would have to look at some of their practices and what they can do in order to open up, in order to improve their operations and practices. And by the way, although you mentioned right in the beginning, they will come to this in the later part of the discussion. In the Competition Amendment Bill, there is a provision, the bill is pending before the parliament, refer to the standing committee. There is a provision of commitment and settlement. So in this settlement, the delinquent parties can enter into a settlement with the commission and similarly offer any commitments. Now, this is a practice which is prevalent in Europe and elsewhere.
Okay.
And the idea in the competition reform, this amendment bill, would be, there are many provisions, this is one of them,
Okay.
that the parties can negotiate with the commission to what would be the reforms, what would be the changes in their market practices which they would include, and they can, the fines, the penalties, which could be up to 10% of the turnover according to the Section 27B of the Act. As of now, it could even be reduced. So, and they can reform their practices. So many of these things are going to be seen going forward. But we have to, I completely agree, we have to take a holistic view to what is possible. It's not enough just to impose penalties. We have to see that the market is there the way the commission wants it to be.
Okay. Jiten, your views there, you wanted to add a few points earlier, but also bringing in this aspect of reforms to the entire, the competition regulation regime there.
Look, for the very simple understanding of our viewers, this whole competition commission penalty on Google, just understand any technology-based product in this world has basically three stages of life cycle. First is innovation, where everything is free, Nobody comes up with a strict law. When Google started, putting YouTube on the mobile apps, they wanted to have an app store. Their considerations were valid. That look, we are innovating a product which can provide you live stream or free video storage, which you can buffer and see anywhere. And nobody thought anything beyond it. That what a technological innovation it is. Then they saw that look, Google Play Store, what you have on your mobile phone, you can only download apps from Google Play because of security considerations. That if you download outside Google Play, it may be a malware, it may be something a suspicious application or a malicious one. So because like Apple says, you can only download from App Store. This is because of security considerations. So in an innovative space, all those innovative stage, all those considerations are valid and nobody questions. The problem happens when after innovation, the monetization starts. Like when Google 6 months back said that every app which is on Google Play will have to pay 30% revenue to Google because you are using our platform, our innovation, our services. So moment these innovations are turned into monetization of services, then the restrictions begin and then regulators come in and they see that if at all a innovation has to be monetized, then the field has to be level playing for everyone, for the new innovators also. Now there is a third stage, which is of weaponization of technology. What is happening with 5G, where we had a valid national security consideration that if you give all the networks and infrastructure to Huawei, there might be a espionage issue by Chinese state coming in. If you look at this banning of Chinese apps, so then in that space you do away with all the considerations that are valid for innovation and monetization, and you simply take a national security call. So what we are seeing with Google today is the monetization phase, where Google is trying to monetize its services, make money out of them, which were earlier free, and use its position of monopoly and dominance to create more revenue. Now that is why the regulator is stepping in to ensure that they protect the free rights of a free market of every customer in India, and there are multiple choices available. No company is able to force upon any of their product on the customer. And I think this whole penalty or order should be taken in the right spirit as a measure to protect the free Indian market.
Okay. And then what about the reform process when we're talking about the entire competition, regulatory mechanism which is already in place?
It would begin like Google would have to do away with the YouTube's predominance or pre-installation of it. If somebody wants to use it, they can install and they can pay it and they can download from any other service. Likewise for the search engine, a mobile operator tomorrow can offer whether you want to have Google search as a default search engine or some other search engine. So today in your computers you have a choice. So I think choice will be made available to customers.
Okay.
Whether the pricing is free or paid will be left to the companies, but a choice will be made available. There will be nothing by default, nothing by pre-installation.
Okay. Quick concluding comment from you, Mr. Seth, before we bring this discussion to an end.
Yeah, so on the reform part, I'll say that the larger portion is played by the consumerism. Like when, as Jiten rightly pointed about, that it was innovation then monetization. Now this consumerization and the commodity, that it has become like a commodity. Now everyone is on it. So until unless we have an alternate solution, there will be small bits and pieces. The places will be there. It's an open market. By the time they scale up to that level, they give up that kind of a convenience. They give up that kind of a solution to the consumer. Only then the reformation will happen in place. And by that time, it completely affects whatever the businesses are running, whatever the consumer benefits are being there, enjoyed by the consumer. But yes, when this innovation has been monetized, and it is seeing like a very large chunk of money, it becomes a concern for everyone because it doesn't leave a scope which is open for the other players in the market, and they die their own death.
Okay.
The application could not see the future of the day or the light of the day, end of the tunnel. They are not able to even walk that path. So we have to make that kind of a level playing field. And also at the same point of time, we need to put a kind of a mandate with the OEM, because see, it is with the OEM when they launch their devices into the market, they claim to fame that these are the features that are pre-installed in their devices, and that gets bundled as a part of their price offering. So they should not be using that platform that, okay, these are the freebies that are being bundled in the devices the moment you switch it on. So it should be open at that angle also, where the OEM devices should not be mandatorily running on that CTS test or the Google test services. And that is where it will open up the market. Until unless we change the platform from there, the bigger players like this, they will keep on dominating because they will play on the aspect of security, the consumer and the convenience. And because it is by default bundled by the OEM itself.
Okay, indeed. Thank you so much, Mr. Manu, Seth, Jiten, as well as Mr. Dhanendra, Kumar, for sharing your views and insight as our experts were explaining the entire intricacy of this case wherein the Competition Commission of India has imposed a provisional fine on the big tech company Google vis-a-vis its practices in the Android mobile ecosystem and the related aspects therein as well. We'll keep a close watch on all the developments here and keep on bringing you detailed analysis in future as well. Keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.